Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
And I'm Mono White Border, also known as Peter.
We got the second half of our Thunder Junction archetype uncommon kind of breakdown, exploration, rating. We're looking at the archetypes of Thunder Junction, look at that pair of cards, and look at that description from Wizards of what that color pair is trying to do. It's kind of a common thing, and we saw it in the last episode where there might be like a cool thing, hey, commit crimes every turn in a long game. But when you look at the cards, you're like, I don't know if I believe that I can actually do that turn after turn. You know, another thing we saw in the last episode was like, hey, the theme here for Red-Green is 4 power matters. Everyone get your pillows out. It's time for a nap. But yeah, why don't you help us review the 4 categories we've got?
Yeah, so we had 4 categories. The first one was excitement. You know, that's kind of first gut reaction when you explain it to somebody. How enticed are they? The second is accuracy. So that's like how well is it representing what's it going to do? How believable is it that you're going to be able to do this thing? Am I going to be able to keep targeting my opponent's stuff every turn and committing crimes every turn? Or is there only maybe like 1 or 2 cards that really let me do that, and then the deck's never really going to feel like it's coming together? Next is synergy. So that's how well are cards going to combine in the archetype? Am I going to make 2 cards come together to do something way cooler than either one of them could do individually? And then finally, just kind of the flat strength of those archetype uncommons. When you look at the archetype uncommons, is it something that you're excited to play? You're excited to draft? Are you looking to put it in your deck? Or is it something maybe you're kind of picking up later down in the draft because it's just a little role player?
Like we mentioned last episode, this is not about like predicting how good each archetype is going to be in Thunder Junction. This is not about like giving you data about how successful each one is. This is not a guide to draft. This is more just developing sort of some design instincts by looking at, a new set that has a lot of people excited. Mm-hmm. So our first color pair for this episode is going to be white-black attrition. Your permanents are here for a good time, not a long time. Sacrifice shamelessly, block fearlessly, and attack aggressively. Every loss is another opportunity for larger gain.
This is kind of a weird one because it's not really an archetype in the usual sense. Like, it's just kind of like I just feel like I'm not really getting a sense of what to expect from these archetype uncommons, having not looked at them yet. Is it going to be a sacrifice theme? Is that what it's kind of saying? Is it going to be trading 1 for 1? Is it going to be more of just like that removal theme that we see a lot of times in black and white? Are we trying to drain our opponent? I don't feel like this description actually sends me in a clear direction.
Yeah, I can think this can often be fun in a set to play this kind of attrition-y deck, but I don't know what about this archetype is specific to Thunder Junction. Like, what is new about it? I guess we talked a little bit about like mercenary tokens. Maybe we'll have extra tokens laying around, but it's not really maximizing on those tokens probably because it doesn't really care about their abilities. Plot, not really. Mounts, not really.
It's kind of interesting because, too, like, we don't have a whole lot of flavor. Like, what's the flavor around this mechanic going to be? Like, I could imagine, like, the black-white archetype kind of being the, like, bankers, the people who kind of control the money, are in charge of everything. I think that'd be a cool flavor to go down.
Yeah. Maybe we'll jump right into these cards and get a sense of it. So the first one here, Baron Bertram Greywater. Well, that's a cool name. 2 white-black, 4 mana for a 3/4. It's a vampire noble, notably. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 vampire rogue creature token with lifelink. This ability triggers only once each turn.
Okay, double your tokens.
1 and a black, sacrifice another creature or artifact, draw a card. This is an interesting card because this is pretty synergy driven. I'd need to have, I guess, a lot of ways to make tokens in order for this to do much. But if I can do that, then I start to get like a pretty solid deal.
Yeah, it's kind of what you mentioned a little bit where, okay, maybe we're using mercenaries to get tokens. Baron then gives you the tokens so you can sacrifice them for profit.
I guess it's any tokens, if there's food, if there are clues. I don't know how many clues would be here, but if there are, those will work.
Yeah, you treasure tokens.
Treasure. Oh yeah, that's actually what
That's
we
probably
really
what you're
want.
looking at.
We want to turn our treasure generation into extra 1/1s.
Yep. So yeah, whether you make a treasure, you get a 1/1, then you can sacrifice either the 1/1 or the treasure or both and draw a card.
The first ability seems like kind of a hard thing to do normally at first, but the more we talk about it, we've got more and more tokens in Magic over time. The more I'm starting to believe that this is possible.
Sometimes I feel like these get a 1/1 archetype uncommons are not as good as they first sound. My thought being like, oh, I'll slowly gain 1/1s, and what ends up usually happening is that I get a 1/1 that has to block because I'm already a little bit behind, and jumping through the hoops to get another 1/1 puts me further behind, and then that 1/1 just has to block. Yeah. And so I'm really just, instead of slowly grinding out my opponent, I'm just slowly staving off death and not really winning.
Yeah. The second ability here, pay 2 mana and sack a creature artifact. That does mean that if I'm chump blocking with my extra tokens, that I at least get to turn them into cards. I need this to happen like once or twice on like turns 5, 6, 7. And then if I can get it to happen in that crucial turnaround window, then I'll stabilize and then I'll start pulling really far ahead. Even like outside of artifact tokens, like if there's just a creature, hey, I'm a 2/2, and when I enter the battlefield, create a token. That's potentially 2 fodder for Bertram here to draw more cards. And it's a 3/4, and I think that 4th toughness can count for a lot.
Yeah.
We saw like an Azorius card last episode where the payoff was so huge that I really never want to risk the creature in blocks. Here I'm willing to risk the Baron. If he dies, he dies.
The other card here is Ruthless Lawbringer, 1 white-black for a 3/2 vampire assassin. When Ruthless Lawbringer enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target non-land permanent.
Oh.
So I'm kind of understanding the flavor here of like, the evil kind of mayor character, Baron Bertram, and he's got his,
Lawbringers,
bandits. Yeah, his bandits on the payroll.
Yeah.
It's not a Necrotol.
You don't go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably good. Necrotol is a very good
It's
card.
only 3 mana for a 3/2. So I'm getting like a reasonable body. I don't need the trigger to be insane.
Yeah. And you're hoping to sacrifice probably a token from like a Raise the Alarm style card.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of upgrading it.
I feel pretty good about my ability to even just upgrade sacking my kind of good 2/2 to kill their 5/6. Every time I draw the Lawbringer, I'm going to get something out of it. And it's non-land permanent, which is a little extra safety against like some bizarro enchantment garbage that's ruining my day that I can't stop.
2 very hoop jumping cards, though. You have to be the kind of person who doesn't want to take the easy road.
I would put Baron as like a definite hoop jumper. This Lawbringer, I feel like it's just a good card. No qualifiers on that good card thing. Let's get through our little rubric here. Let's try out our categories, and maybe that'll clarify. So excitement. How excited are you to do this kind of attrition-y thing in Thunder Junction?
Description of the actual archetype doesn't excite me at all, so no bonus points there. Yeah. I don't think Baron really gets me that excited. Like I'm not seeing Baron picking him up mid-pack and being like, "Oh, I'm black-white now. How lucky I am." And then Ruthless Lawbringer, I'm a little bit lower on than you. I don't think I'm super jazzed about anything going on here. I might be at a 1 or a 2.
Yeah, I think 1 is believable from what you're saying. I'm trying to see if I want to get to a 2. So part of excitement to me is like I'm looking at a pack. And if it's pack 1, pick 1, let's say my rare or my 2 rares, because it's a play booster, are bad. So I'm not picking them. So I'm comparing Bertram here to like Murder. Is the archetype tempting enough that I might stray from the solid removal pick into this cool gold card? Because, taking a gold card first is like kind of a risk. It's less likely to make your final deck because you might have to pivot out of those colors. Bertram requires a fair amount of commitment. You need to trust fall into believing that I'm going to have 6, 7, 8 ways of making a token. Maybe 6 is what I need. Yeah, it's really hard for me to believe that I'm going to be picking Bertram over a Murder, over just a really solid basic card. So yeah, maybe 1. I talked a lot just to say the same thing you did.
I think you said it really well, though.
Thanks, buddy. All right, accuracy. How likely is it that if I'm playing black-white, I'm going to be doing this thing? Actually, I could go a little higher there.
Yeah, I think both of these cards reek of attrition. Just the stench is overwhelming. They almost are problematically accurate in the sense of like you're so focused on the attrition, you're forgetting to like you got to advance your board too, there, buddy. You gotta have a win con in mind, other than just maybe attacking with your 3/2 that destroyed a creature already.
Maybe one of the things we're trying to evaluate with this accuracy category is, let's say I didn't see either of these cards, but I ended up black-white after the first pack, and then middle of pack 2, I see Baron go by. How likely, if I'm already black-white, is my deck built to do the things that Baron Bertram wants to do?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're going by that metric, I mean, you could have some genuine concerns that you don't line up with Baron if you're not getting the.
Yeah, I might not see these tokens.
Yeah, some token stuff. I don't think they're missing the mark. But maybe with that kind of context of, am I going to get mid pack in pack 2? And I look at Baron and I'm like, oh man, I get it. Yeah, all my cards line up now. I'm not sure you're going to get there.
I think with this Lawbringer, if I'm playing a white deck, I'm pretty confident I'm going to have creatures that were good early that I want to cash in to murder an awesome thing later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to a 3. It sounds like you're a little lower.
No, I was landing about 3 as well.
All right. Synergy. Does this make cards that you wouldn't otherwise play better? Does this make cards that you were kind of okay playing, like kind of incredible? Am I going to be stuffing, raise the alarms in my deck so that I can make this work?
I think both of these cards are intrinsically looking for synergies.
Yeah.
So they're definitely leaning into the synergy. Are they great at making those synergies work? Yeah, they're probably pretty good at it.
I think they are, yeah.
Baron gives you that extra token to sacrifice, draw a card. Ruthless Lawbringer turns any tokens you have lying around into creature removal.
Yeah.
I'm thinking probably a 4 here on synergy.
Yeah. I am a little skeptical that like the rogues that we're making aren't like putting the strategy over the top the way that we might want.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I'm set up to do this, if I get my 5 token making cards and my 3 artifacts and my little good early, bad late creatures, Bertram's gonna just be so good for me. And then finally, the raw power of these 2 cards. I'm actually, I would say, fairly high on both these cards in terms of raw power. To me, what I'm doing right now is just deleting the first paragraph on Baron Bertram.
Right.
And then just a 4-mana 3/4 that can sack creatures to draw cards. That's a good card.
Right. Do you think the Ruthless Lawbringer brings it up to a 5 for you?
That's a good question. It's pretty close.
I think that's where we're at. I think Baron is pretty comfortable at a 4 here, which is kind of interesting considering last time we talked a lot about how like higher synergy usually indicated lower raw strength.
Mm-hmm.
But here we're looking at maybe going up to a 5.
Yeah, I guess the first paragraph on Bertram being so blank in an average deck, but also potentially pretty cool if you can build around it, that allows you to have both a good synergy and a good strength score.
Yeah, let's do a 4. I could see a 5, honestly, if we want to.
All right, I'll put you down.
Make them feel real good.
I'm going to stay at 4, but I believe the 5.
I've come around on the Lawbringer, I think.
I'm feeling great about it. If I'm like abs in or something, I'm pulling in like 2 black cards. One of them's a Lawbringer. Yeah, I feel good about that.
Yeah, so now we're going to take a look at Blue-Red's second spell. Sling your spells in 1/2 bursts. Low mana value cards and plotted cards enable combinations of 2 or more spells in a turn, unlocking a flurry of bonuses.
Okay, so this brings plot back again.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the ability to like prepay for a card. I'm going to prepay for it. I can't use it right away, but I get a discount or some bonus for doing so. And then Izzet here is saying, not only are you just using plot cards for their own power, it's going to allow you to cast 2 spells in the same turn multiple times and then have some triggers happen because of that.
Plot, I can see how it makes a ton of sense for an Is It Mage to be like, yeah, I'm into this. I'm going to set up these cool, 1-2 punches in my deck so that my turn 3 is a little boring, but then my turn 4 is really powerful.
Yeah. And I think another thing that seems kind of appealing about this is it's saying, play on your turn. Don't worry about holding your counterspell open. Don't worry about being slow with your removal spell, like trying to be canny with it. Like, you're going to want to cast your natural spell for the turn and then layer on a second spell and then have a bunch of bonuses go off.
Mm-hmm. From the description, I'm excited to see it work. Will it work? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's look at these cards.
All right. Crom Violent Cacophony is the first one. 2 blue-red for a 2/3 zombie horror with flying. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Crom, Violent Cacophony, and draw a card. This is not that different from the Commander Crom.
Oh, yeah.
He's found his perfect little home here on Thunder Junction.
We all have a home.
Oh, the original Crom cared about whenever an opponent casts his or her second spell each turn.
Okay. A little more ADHD there.
Yeah.
Your opponent's going to him. Mm-hmm. But Crom here, you can enable this yourself. You turn 3 plot, turn 4 cast Crom, cast the plotted spell. Boom, you got your card back.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like we talked about with Azorius, when you put draw a card on a condition, you're going to draw a lot of attention.
People like that.
Yeah, that's easy to turn into a good thing. Yeah, I don't want to risk Crom in combat right away. But if I manage to do this twice, now I've got a 4 or 5 flyer. I'm happy to attack with that, of course. And I'm also kind of happy to block with it too. I don't know. Once I get up to that 5 toughness, I can risk my guy here.
He's pretty good. I almost wish he had haste, but maybe that's just being a little greedy. That's pretty aggressive for an uncommon.
Yeah. I guess as an uncommon, maybe they just have to get the power level exactly right, and it's not quite as much about feel. With rares, you get to like just make the card feel exactly like it should.
Right. I mean, this is sick. You can instantly see how the payoffs work in. You can see the play pattern super clearly.
Yeah. I play some other cards out early, and then I just play Crom and a cheap spell on turn 7, get my card back. I'm feeling awesome. I feel like I'm set up.
Yeah.
I'm like way ahead.
It feels like when you're setting up on turns 2 and 3, and the thing you're setting up is double spelling on turns 4 and 5, like that's already what you want to be doing in Limited is getting 2 spells on turn 5. So this is setting you up to get 2 spells on turn 4, get a sweet body.
Yeah. Okay, and then the other card here, and then we'll get to some ratings. Slick Sequence. This is 2 mana, blue and a red for an instant. Deal 2 damage to any target, and if you cast another spell this turn, draw a card. So shock, but if you combo it with another thing, get your card back. That's a pretty big gulf between the 2 modes. 2 mana shock or get your card back shock.
Super below rate.
Yeah.
Unless it's the second spell.
Yeah.
You almost can't view this as a 2 mana spell, in the sense of like you never want to cast this on turn 2.
Yeah.
You want to cast this on turn 4 or 5.
All right, let's look at our categories here. Excitement. How exciting does this 2 spell thing seem?
I'm into it. It's using a mechanic of the set.
Yeah, that's important.
It feels cool. I think it's probably a 4, maybe a 5. What do you think?
Yeah, 4 or 5 for sure for me. Plot is making me feel like this is something that I'll get to do a couple times a game. Like I'll be able to plot twice. Maybe plotting twice is a stretch. Am I going to be able to plot twice in a game? Maybe that's a little funny. But I'll plot once and then I'll just naturally double spell another time. So I can get this to happen twice pretty reliably. If I do that, I'm getting cards back. Who doesn't love that? So these 2 cards really make me want to do that. I opened these 2 cards in my pre-release pool, and I'm looking at my Izzet cards. Can I make this happen? Because this feels like the core of a deck already.
I'm willing to give it a 5 just because I think working so well with a mechanic in the set and getting me excited to plot cards, that is what bumps you up to a 5 for me.
This is my one chance to make this deck work and really sing. Is playing this set. All right, yeah, let's go 5. accuracy. Do I think I'm going to be able to do this? This is where I'm not going to be a 5. People want to be is a spell slingers. That's just their dream, right? I'm going to be casting tons of spells. The reality often doesn't live up to that, at least in regular limited.
Yeah.
And, other decks, it's more true.
Mm-hmm. You're probably going to cast 2 spells in a turn at some point.
Yeah.
Is it going to be 2 spells that care about the fact that you cast 2 spells? Hopefully. If this is the archetype, then I certainly would want it to be. I don't know how many cards you can put, like, when you cast your second spell each turn. I don't feel like that's too unreasonable to put on a lot of cards, or if this was your second spell you cast.
Yeah, 3 or 4 is where I'm starting.
Yeah, I say give it a 4.
All right. If it weren't for plot, this would be like a 2.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got synergy. Does this make other cards better? Do these cards not come to life until you're playing the deck? Well, Slick Sequence, is kind of trash if I'm not expecting to do this.
The cards are inherently synergistic because they demand a second card.
Yeah.
But also they make themselves better because of the second card, so it's not really
feels very synergy. I would say the score is pretty high because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not that they're making the other card better, it's that the other card is making them better. It's like reverse synergy.
Yeah, in order to play these, you need to be playing the deck, which I think is a good, that's something that should get a pretty high synergy score.
Yep.
Is this just a flat 4, or are these cards just all about synergy?
Well, if you aren't doing the thing, they are really bad. But like if you never second spell with Crom,
or I guess it's not necessarily if I never second spell, but if I put no cards in my deck that make second spell easier to do.
Honestly, if you cast Crom on turn 4 without a plot locked in, is Crom particularly good?
Of plotting. If I have cheap spells, I've probably already cast them. So I probably don't have a big bang of cheap spells to use. The payoff is pretty high.
Yeah, I could see him going up to 5.
Yeah. Slick Sequence is just so built on synergy.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
It makes sense for Izzet too. Izzet loves synergy.
All right, the raw power. I think Slick Sequence is fairly low on raw power. I can imagine that even in another environment, I could sometimes make this happen.
They're both the type of card that regardless of your board state, if you top deck them, like if you're in top deck mode and this is the card you draw, not that exciting.
Yeah, they're funny because if you top deck them, it's not very good. But if you are heading into top deck with them already on hand, they're great. Like, I want Crom when it's turn 8.
Yeah.
And I have 1 card in hand because almost all the draws in my deck are going to just like create an avalanche of value. Yeah, I guess the late game reach on Crom is pretty good. It makes good cards better. It makes, cheap cards better. 3.
I was leaning towards 2. Yeah, okay. I'd probably give him a 2. Click sequence is not desirable.
All right, next up. Oh, this might be a pillow one. Black-green creatures in the graveyard. Have you done this in Golgari before? You only live once. Hardly. Your cards can bring fallen creatures back into the fray or simply take advantage of the number of creature cards in your graveyard. I mean, I think it's more fun than Power 4 or greater, but it is as boring as Power 4 or greater.
Yeah, you've read this a billion times.
Yeah.
A billion different ways.
Yeah. Is there anything graveyardy naturally about this set that we're kind of tapping into?
That we've talked about so far. Plot, no. Mounts, no. Mercenaries, no. I don't really think there's a mill component to the set.
So before we get to these 2 cards, this feels like as play it safe as possible. Whether the cards are good or not. Maybe the cards are really sick and we're really excited to play them. That's possible. But the archetype as it reads, as we're thinking about it, as we're thinking about the set, I can do this in a million sets.
Yep. Bar is low.
And, I've enjoyed many Golgari decks that are super grindy that do, spider spawning out of the graveyard or reanimate huge things Ikoria style. Like, this has been a fun thing to do, but the excitement's not there. All right. Our first one here is Badlands Revival. 3 black green for a sorcery. Return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Return up to 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. We got another one of your cactus buddies.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a good card.
Yeah. Isn't the old standard 5 mana to reanimate something an uncommon?
There's like bad, like common. Yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah.
And so this is just enhancing that. And here, have a bonus card.
Yeah, that plus, we'll call it draw a card. It's worse than draw a card in some ways, better than draw a card in other ways. Return 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. You have to have something in your graveyard for that to do anything, but you might be getting back an awesome thing.
Mm-hmm. Good. Once again, not super exciting, not super not selling me on like, oh yeah, this is our chance to do creature survival matters.
Are we aware of anything in the set that would allow us to have like really juicy things in the graveyard? Not really. I don't think so. But yeah, adding draw card onto Slick Sequence, the Izzet card, that made it a lot more exciting. And that card was kind of bad at a baseline. This Badlands Revival is kind of okay as a baseline and gets even better if you do the thing. But what is the thing? What thing are you doing? I don't know. Anyhow, the other card here, we got a lot of laughs when this card was revealed. Honest Rutstein, old Rutstein's back and now got a new marketing. 1 black green. When Honest Rutstein enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Oh, it's a 3/2. 3 mana 3/2, ETB, Grave Dig, and a little rider, a little bonus.
Both these cards are just very. You kind of prefaced before we went into the cards with the like excitement meter of like excitement pretty low. Like these cards are going to need to do some work, and these cards did the bare minimum.
Yeah. I think like last week we had the Azorius cards where like going in it's like, oh, I can use plot and not do stuff on my turn. Okay, well, whatever. But then when we looked at the 2 cards, they actually encouraged like a really novel, cool lifestyle that we're really interested in. Here, I mean, these cards seems good. You're going to play 3 and 4 color decks that play these and get a lot of value out of them. But they're not opening up new doors. They're not doing anything brand new.
Yeah. There's just a limit to the amount of new mechanics you can introduce in a set. And so therefore you have to have some archetypes that fall back on their old laurels. And in this case, that's kind of what Golgari is doing right now. There's nothing really wrong with it.
I will say I like on the Rutstein card, creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. That actually allows me to take those like slow recursion cards and like turn the corner much faster. Because if I rip this guy on turn 5 or whatever, I get back a different 3-drop and I can cast that 3-drop along with Rutstein on turn 5 and like really get back in the game much faster. So Rutstein is like an individually cool design that if they're like, I don't know, like some Raised Dead with a bonus cards in the set, I'm going to be able to, realize those returns better and not get fully run over, which makes it a cooler card. Does it make it a cooler archetype? Not particularly. I guess if I have 2 Rutsteins in my deck, I feel stronger than if I have 2, classic 4-mana Gravediggers in my set.
What these cards kind of do is they take me back to when we were discussing the Orzhov uncommons and your mid-pack 2, you feel comfortably in these 2 colors, and then you open these. Do you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? And the weird thing about these cards is I don't feel like if I saw these and I'm like, oh, this is my archetype. So wait, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? Like I'm still just as confused as when I was before. And that's not really a place where you normally find yourself with these.
With those Orzhov cards, it felt like it might snap into place. Like I knew I'm Orzhov, but my cards kind of feel all mushy. And then I see Baron and like, oh, I'm doing this token thing. This seems sick. If I see these Golgari cards in pack 2, I'm like, hey, cool. These are probably better than other options that I have in this pack, but I'm still just like a soup of graveyard stuff.
Yep.
All right, let's go through our list here. So excitement, this seems like a firm 1.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing that holds me back from maybe not a fully firm 1 for me is a 1.2 because it is fun to do graveyard stuff. Like you just looking through your graveyard, you got this whole set of resource you don't get to play with. That's just like a fun thing. But in terms of this set advertising this thing,
I have good news for you. The
What's that?
most limited art or most limited formats, you're gonna get a graveyardy archetype, probably. I
Yeah,
feel like it's
I
not
guess it
uncommon.
to me it's more fun than hey, there's a Flyers deck. Hey, there's a red white aggressive deck. It's more fun than those.
Yeah, yeah.
A 4 power plus deck. It's like the graveyard deck is just a cool, fun thing. Actually, maybe I think I'm going to go 2 because of that. Because I just when I
Oh
see
no.
graveyard matters, I actually feel good about that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of bias coming through.
Hey, you know what? That's part of what we're exploring with this
Yeah,
series
very
here.
true. What go-to themes are still exciting, even though they're go-to themes?
Mm-hmm. Accuracy. How likely is it if I'm playing black green in Outlaws of Thunder Junction? Am I going to be a graveyard deck? I feel like this is the 5-5.
I guess mill evergreen. Like you can 100% expect to see a green cards that mill you in every set now.
I would guess that there's got to be a green card that self mills and a black card that self
Yeah.
mills. I would be
So
surprised if
yeah,
those aren't available.
you're just gonna do this. Yeah, 5.
Synergy. These two cards aren't that synergistic.
Mm-mm. Rustine has some cool play where you bring back your creature and then it's easier for you to cast your creature, but
Yeah, I guess it's like enabling a kind of a cool thing. If I'm able to trade off on turn 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I'm able to get them out really fast. And I'm actually maybe can be a little faster than the average Golgari deck. That doesn't totally feel like synergy to me.
it's like the weakest justification for a synergy score, I feel
Yeah,
like. I'm thinking probably a 1 here. Like these cards just do what they're supposed to do.
yeah. Even if it is like a perennial strategy for this color pair, it does feel like the power level of different cards does shift up and down a little bit to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like those mill cards suddenly become quite good in my deck when they're just kind of meaningless in other people's decks. Even if that's something that we've hit in like probably at least once or twice a year out of 4 standard sets, like it still is like good draft action. It still is making things happen. If it was a 2, it was not because Thunder Junction is doing something unique, but because I can trust that this is such a solid archetype that it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it a 1.8. I'll stay at 1 though. All right, raw power. I think the raw power of these cards is quite high.
Yeah, for sure.
It starts at a 4 for me, and I could go up.
Mm-hmm.
Redstein especially. 3 mana Gravedigger with even some bonus power. Gravedigger normally 4 mana 2/2 get a creature back. This is 3 mana 3/2 get a creature back and make that creature cheaper. A lot of upside.
I mean, yeah, these are straight just like rehashed designs that have been pushed. So
Yeah, okay, that's fair to say. Yeah.
I could easily see them just getting a 5. They're rock solid. Maybe rock solid is a 4.
And part of what we're measuring with this raw strength is like I'm looking at my sealed pool and I see these cards. How likely am I to jam them in the deck? Very likely.
Mm-hmm.
They're even kind of splashable because their power level is high enough that you can use them late, so they're like really safe. So I think I'm a 5. Do you want to be 4?
No, I'll agree with you on a 5.
All right. All right. What's our next archetype?
Next up, we have Mercenary Aggro. Wow, way to combine an exciting word with a word that's probably a little less exciting. You might not have the biggest creatures, but you have the most aggressive ones. Mercenary tokens will pump the power of your creatures so you can keep making good attacks when opposition arrives. Ooh, this is like the most like, yeah, you can copy my homework, but change it up a little Boros of all Boroses, right? You know, it's still the same Boros stuff, but with different words that are more interesting.
I'm kind of feeling it though. I don't know.
I love mercenaries. Yeah. 100%.
Like when we saw the power 4 plus, yeah, you could technically use a mercenary to turn a 3 power creature into 4 power creature, but that's like Christmassy. That's like unlikely. Can I use mercenaries in my like super aggressive deck to have 1,000,000 mercenaries and have them reconfigure to be the best attacker every turn? 100% believe it. Is it going to be something brand new? Absolutely. Yeah. These tokens are great.
Yeah, I think this is an example of like, it is the same thing done in the same way. Like, where is the uniqueness to the specific set? Well, this is still just Boros Aggro, which is a classic archetype. But we are making it feel colored to match Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and it feels like it's doing it in a way that is unique to this set.
All right, give me one of those gold cards so I can see where we're headed.
All right. First up is Eartha Joe, Frontier Mentor, 2 red white for a 2/4. Legendary creature core advisor. When Eartha Joe, Frontier Mentor, enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
This is sick.
Double your mercenary abilities.
Yeah.
Double your
my tap abilities. If I have a creature that tap,
your pingers.
I have a tapper. Oh yeah, if I have something like tap to deal a damage to each opponent, I get to deal 2 damage.
Mm-hmm.
I guess each opponent wouldn't work. It would have to be target. But in this set, I'm guessing that it would be.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're making more things target and less things each here. I'm pretty convinced by this card. I guess it may come down to exactly how much mercenary production there is. Are we looking at 10 mercenary cards in the set? Are we looking at 15 or 20 mercenary cards in the set? But if we are towards that higher side, I'm a believer and I want to play this deck.
Mm-hmm. This lets you go tall or go wide fairly easily. You know, your 1 mercenary can pump 2 people, or it can put +2/+0. So you get 3/5 worth of stats across 2 bodies. And then Eartha Joe herself can be basically a 4/4 attacker intrinsically for 4 mana. Pretty good.
Yeah. This puzzle of at my start of combat, it's actually really interesting what I want to do in my Boros deck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be thinking for a minute about how I'm going to reconfigure all these mercenaries. Who's going to get how much power? Where am I sending them? Normally, in a Boros deck, like in Ravnica, it's just, what am I going to do on my turn? Attack with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of free in its own way, but it's not that exciting. It's not that novel. I don't make a lot of choices. Feels like with these mercenaries, I get to make a million kind of cool choices at one specific part of the game. Like the beginning of combat is this crazy moment for me.
All right. And the other archetype uncommon, this is actually my favorite card in the set, I think. Form a Posse, X red white for a sorcery. Create X 1/1 red mercenary creature tokens with tap target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. They have the mercenary text.
All right, so 5 mana, get 3 mercenaries. That's a little soft, but maybe it's okay. But I get to configure this when I need it. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't have a 5-drop, so I'm just deploying this for 3 mercenaries. Or I rip it late and it rules. I get 6 mercenaries.
Oh, well, there was a 4 mana card that made 2 tokens, but they had haste in Boros.
Yeah, 4 mana I'd want to get normally 2 2/2s, and I don't think a mercenary is, at least when you're casting it on turn 4, is as good as a 2/2. But maybe that's close. Maybe that's closer than I'm giving you credit for.
Yeah. So the reason I like this card is because when I first encountered mercenaries, I was like, oh, cool. It's like you're making a posse. So then when I saw a Form a Posse as a literal card, that got me really excited.
All right.
And maybe the late game power flexibility of this card where you just create 6 1/1s and it just completely changes the math on a board stall.
Yeah.
Is really good. And that pushes it up. I feel like the most common case you're looking at is 4 mana, get 2 1/1s that can pump something, which is pretty mediocre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess if you have Eartha Joe, all these mercenaries are quite good.
Yeah, that's very true. This card probably just needed an extra line of text where something happened with the mercenaries when they entered, or you can't give them all haste because then it's too swingy, but
it probably triggers outlaw stuff, so it's going to be compatible with a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's hit our categories up. Excitement, this is pretty high for me.
Yeah, I think this is still just a solid one for me, where it's normally I would be lower on just another Boros aggro archetype, but because it has the mercenary component, I'm willing to put it at a 3. It is something familiar, but also new, and I'll reward it for that and keep it above a 2.
Yeah. This was a big swing for me. I think this is I would say a 4 for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just love this mercenary token so much. And it feels like this archetype puts the focus on the mercenaries. We saw earlier there's a Rakdos one that like can use mercenaries, or like Gruul could technically do it. But here you're playing the mercenary deck, and your mercenaries are great in the deck, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I guess this is the biggest question for me for this. The accuracy category. This is where we figure out if you're playing Boros, how likely is it that you're playing mercenaries?
Mm-hmm. I really like that both the uncommon cards just give you tokens.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good sign for me. How many of these tokens can you expect to see, though?
Yeah.
I don't feel like mercenaries are a token that that like you can just print extra aggressively, similar like how decay tokens appeared a lot in Innistrad because they couldn't block. Mercenaries still gum up the board like 100%.
They can't be super aggressive about giving you just lots of free mercenaries. They are a decent amount better than a regular 1/1.
I feel like this is one of those archetypes where you draft it 3 times and one of the times it comes together and you're like, I got to do all of the mercenary stuff, guys. It was so cool.
Okay.
And most of the time it just doesn't. So maybe a 2 here.
Yeah. I'm between a 2 and a 3. Let me think about it.
It's hard to get a 1 on accuracy, I'm realizing. You really have to miss the mark.
What do you have to be a 1 in accuracy? You have to like promise something that's just never going to happen. Whenever you cast a spell that costs 10 or more. People can think of some examples of like uncommon gold cards that promise things that absolutely never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know. Because we're still kind of figuring out the scale. We're trying to figure out like what the right categories are.
And to be fair, Simic is up next. So I feel like if anyone's going to be inaccurate, it's going to be Simic.
Yeah, they are often the criminal. We had to have a whole episode about it. I kind of want to. I'm trying to justify a 3 to myself, and I'm not sure I can get there. This archetype's going to do well in other categories. I'll join you in 2 here. All right, synergy. Does this make other cards better? When you're playing these cards, does it improve other things? I kind of think so.
I feel like this is all about changing up the combat math, and I would classify that in the synergy realm. Could you see adding different cards to your deck because the +1/+0 from your mercenaries is going to be so relevant to them?
Yeah, I mean, if I have flyers, it makes my my 1/3 flyer a lot better if I can have a couple mercenaries.
First strikers are even more relevant.
Lifelink, yeah.
Lifelink is huge.
Even trample.
Especially for an aggro archetype, it is as synergistic as you're probably going to get. And deserves some credit for that.
Yeah, it makes me want cards that say whenever you outlaw or your outlaws get or...
On the other hand, though, it is still... At your base, you're probably still just an aggro deck, and you just want to have good on-curve creatures that get in and deal damage.
Yeah.
So maybe that hurts it a little bit and pushes it down to a 3.
Yeah, I think in the end, I do need to have a really disciplined aggro curve. I have to play a lot of creatures. I can't play a lot of cruft. I still feel like I am limited to what a normal aggro deck has to do. Yeah, okay. Let's do 3. Raw strength. Eartha seems quite powerful naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And Form a Posse, I guess the raw strength is never good on any specific early cast, but I feel like I can splash this card if I want to. Like if I'm playing that like Orzhov deck, the black-white deck, and I see a Form a Posse pack 3, I'm thinking, oh, can I splash that? Get him 5 extra tokens? I'm going to feed those all to the Baron. This is going to be good.
Mm-hmm. I'm not totally convinced that X cost spell that makes a bunch of 1/1s would break a board stall normally, but specifically mercenaries have the power to break the board stall.
Yeah.
That's what does it for me on Form a Posse. And then I think Eartha Joe is great. That's a really good rate. And then the ability is really relevant.
Mm-hmm. 4.
Yeah, that's probably what I was thinking is right around 4.
Form a Posse, kind of like you were saying earlier, your first read was like, this is not, you kind of wanted another line or something. And I think this is going to be a very playable card even without an extra line on it. That kind of speaks to it's not just like the slam it. This is going to beat the discipline removal spell pick. This is going to beat that like medium tier rare.
Mhm.
I don't know. It doesn't have that power. All right, last up, the problem child, Simic, my beautiful babies. The theme here is just plot. Set your mastermind plans into motion with the plot mechanic. Your opponents may see them coming. That doesn't mean they'll be able to stop them. Control the battlefield and strike when the time is right.
Man, that is.
None of those things seem green to me.
I don't know, but that is the most Simic-y sentence I've ever heard.
Oh, okay. You know what? It is true. If I'm playing a Simic EDH deck, I am keeping the heat on me as low as possible until it's time to just spurt out like 2 20/20s and just like crush someone.
Yeah. Every Simic player is like constantly concocting a mastermind plan in their own head, right? They're like, 4 turns from now, this creature is going to be so big.
Yeah. Is it a Simic limited player? I guess we'll find out. Plot doesn't feel like it has that many opportunities for like a sneak attack because when you plot a card, it's face up.
The blue-red is like set up 2 spell turns and have like these explosive turns. And blue-white is you're going to hold up mana so you can cast spells on your opponent's turn. And then blue-green is like plot stuff and then cast it later.
Yeah, both the other ones. Those are both open-ended. You could use a bunch of plot with them, or you could do one of many other ways to set them off. All right, so we got 2 cards here. First, we got a sweet little grizzly bear guy, Doc Aurlock, Grizzled Genius. He's a green and a blue for a 2/3. Spells you cast from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less to cast. Plotting cards from your hand cost 2 less to cast. That's an interesting combo of things because the first part doesn't seem relevant to limited.
Yeah, I think that is completely throwaway text.
Yeah. This is like, let's give this a chance of having someone's going to build the EDH deck around it.
Plotting cards from your hand cost 2 less, though, is a nice ramp component. I know there's like a 5/4 in the set that you can plot for 4 mana. This would make it plot for 2 mana, so you can plot on turn 3.
Yeah, there's a nice kind of combination of stats and the ability that means that you get the long game no matter what. Either Doc Aurlock just, heroically throws a block and trades for an important attacker, which gets you to the late game. Or you have a plot card at the right time to, get like a 5/5 on turn 3, which gets you to your late game. If it is possible, which we'll evaluate the exact score later, but if it is possible to have 8 plot cards in your deck, Doc helps with that lifestyle quite a bit.
Yeah. Normally when you're ramping, it's so that you get to cast your turn 4 spell on turn 3. You get to speed up a turn. But here you get to plot your turn 4 plot on turn 3 and then cast it on turn 4, and that creature you could have also just cast on turn 4. It's just a little hard to evaluate plot, and ramping your plot cost.
This feels like unlikely to be explosive and unlikely to be dead. All right, our other card here is called Make Your Own Luck. It's 3 green blue, 5 mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them. If you do, it becomes plotted. Put the rest into your hand. My Simic neurons are lighting up right now when I read this card.
Kind of interesting. So 5 mana draw a card, but with a lot of upside, because you're going to get to cast that spell for free on your next turn.
5 mana draw 3 cards.
No, because it says put the rest into your hand. Never mind. Much better. That is I was going to be really disappointed.
Yeah.
5 mana draw 3, and one of those spells is free on your next turn. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I don't know. I'm loving that.
If there's any additional cards that care about having cards plotted or casting cards from exile, I think that's something we've seen before, is caring about casting something from exile.
Yeah, I guess if we're seeing both the blue-red and the blue-white cards also care about casting from exile, because that avoids like the limitations or whatever. Like it makes me think there are monocolor cards that work with those decks that also work with Make Your Own Luck here. one of the main reasons you're not allowed normally in limited to spend 5 mana to draw 3 cards is because you're just going to die with 7 cards in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And here, one of those cards is going on the battlefield next turn. You take a 1-turn hit, which is what you think you're signing up for, and then you catch right back up in the next turn instead of getting behind on turn 5 and staying behind for the entire rest of the game.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit our categories here. We got excitement. How exciting is this Simic plot strategy?
I'm between a 2 and a 3. I feel like it is pretty unclear what the strategy is besides plot some cards. Like, it kind of feels like there is space for like every time you plot a card, like just for Doc to be like every time you plot a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it or something. So it's like
gain 2 life.
Yeah, like I understand what my reward is other than just I will cast the card later. Maybe plot is its own award enough.
I think I'm at a 2 on excitement on this.
Mm-hmm.
I think plot is a cool thing to play with, and this is going to let me do the most plotting. So, hey, when is my chance to play a deck that's got 8 plot cards? It's this deck. Great, sign me up. Mm-hmm. Do I think that that's going to be a synergistic deck that does a lot of stuff? I don't really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, I'll come down with you. I'll sit at 2.
You could be 3 if you want to.
No, I don't take much convincing to be not excited about Simic.
How excited am I when I see the top 10% of a card and I see blue and green? It's always a 5, baby. I'm always loving every second of it. There's no Simic card that would pass by me without me reading it. This archetype, All right, accuracy. How likely is it that I'm going to get enough plot cards to live the plot deck lifestyle?
I think this is the closest we have to a 1. Because I don't know what the plot deck lifestyle even is from these 2 cards.
Yeah, I can believe that that's a 1. I'm higher on synergy than I was on there being a plot deck.
Yeah. Doc obviously makes more plot cards better. Because there's going to be some plot card that has an exorbitant plot cost that now you can play because it's got a really cheap plot cost.
Yeah. We're sort of saying it's the ramp deck, right? The ramp and draw cards, the traditional Simic thing, but with this plot mechanic. Unlike the Golgari one, which did nothing to make that classic lifestyle more exciting, this actually seems like it's going to be a little more exciting. I'm going to be having cards come in at weird times. Doc Arlock, like I talked about earlier, I think enables the lifestyle in 2 ways. It either throws a solid block or it ramps you. Any game that you play with Doc, he's going to do exactly what his job is, which is good. We've seen plenty of Simic cards in that other app that were either the wrong size or the wrong turn or their ability was a little too hard to trigger. So it's not clear that you get value out of it. Doc will do what he needs to do. He'll let you play that late game where you're like making big creatures that need to be plotted. You need to take time off, so you need some defense. Doc's going to give it to you. And then make your own luck. What does that want you to do? Well, it wants you to have like a bunch of late game cards and a bunch of plot cards. I don't know the plot cards very well, but I imagine there are a bunch of 5 mana ones that like draw cards or do whatever other, make a 6/6 or something. And make your own luck's going to make that easier to do. It is a nice reward if you do see a 6-drop in that pile of 3. You're pumping your fist. Normally you don't want to play many 6-drops, but this make your own luck. You got to decide if you can make your own luck. I'm giving this an emphatic description to lock you into not a 1.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it can't be a 1 because if these cards don't have synergy, then they have nothing. I guess make your own luck is like independently strong.
Yeah, but it is kind of independently strong. Yeah.
Yeah, but Doc has like he is 100% reliant on synergy.
Yeah.
What about 3? How do you feel about 3?
I feel like I've really accomplished something if I get a 3. Raw strength. Doc obviously doesn't have a lot of raw strength, but make your own luck is quite good.
Yeah, make your own luck is fantastic.
Make your own luck is the exact kind of the card you put in like the classic like 4-color deck. And then like when you're not just talking about commons and uncommons, but you plot a rare off of this, incredible.
If we're looking at them both in tandem, I think it's probably a 3. Like make your own luck's a 5 and Doc's a 1, so meet in the middle.
Yeah. Is there likely to be anything that cares about Doc's first ability? Cards from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less to cast? Probably not. What would things from exile be?
If there's like a white rare.
Madness.
No. If there's a white rare that's like the exile
Oh,
a card, but then it costs too much to
you
cast tomorrow
counter
cast.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
the Paulo
instantly
card. Yeah.
countered. Yeah.
I guess if you're trying to cast your exiled cards into ward. Oh wait, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because ward doesn't
Yeah.
add to the cost.
It's an additional cost. Yeah.
Almost. Yeah.
You pay for the ward. Dang.
Okay. I've won a lot by getting up to 3 on synergy, so I'll accept rounding down on raw strength. Alrighty. Do you feel like we learned some things on these episodes?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was really helpful to just go through and figure out like what resonates, what doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
What do you think is like an archetype that surprised you?
I think the biggest swing was the blue-white one. Reading that description and being like, this kind of stinks. And then reading the cards like, yeah, that's a lifestyle.
The red-black mercenary one was the most that impressed me from like
I believe that
just
too.
Reading it, being excited about it, even if maybe the archetype itself, like the cards themselves maybe were a little bit weaker. Is the archetype going to come together? I don't know, but like it engaged me.
Yeah. One thing that I learned looking at some of these cards is them trying to solve the problem with what that synergy would normally bump into. Like with Redstein, I'm going to get a bunch of cards back in my hand, but I can't cast them in time. Make your own luck. I'm going to draw a bunch of cards, but I can't cast them in time. Earth to Joe, I'm going to make all these tokens and they have some difference, but the difference doesn't matter enough. Okay, how about doubling that bonus? It like kind of foresaw what some of the issues were, and it gave kind of like clever solutions to those problems. Or Miriam, the saddle legend that like, as long as it's your turn, your mounts have hexproof. Oh, okay, that is something I would normally, other decks are going to get blown out when they try to mount. I'm not going to get blown out because I have Miriam. I'm also going to murder everybody because I'm also growing them to huge sizes. But in addition to that, I'm also safe.
Yeah, I think a big takeaway for me was probably like going from the Izzet to the Golgari and seeing how Izzet was like, it felt very much like they were doing the Izzet thing of like, oh, I want to like be a spell slinger on my turn. And the mechanics in the set neatly tie together with being a spell slinger on my turn and gain a reward off that. And so we seemed to really rate that really highly. We were excited. It felt synergistic. We thought we could do it, even if the cards weren't as strong. And then going into Golgari, where it's like, yeah, obviously this thing will work, but it doesn't feel like it carved out a unique home in this set. And that kind of hurt its score, even though we knew we could do it and the cards were good. It's like, I mean, it doesn't feel uniquely placed in this set. It feels like it was just kind of dropped in.
Yeah. I'd always sort of been aware, like, hey, this is a cool uncommon, but I won't get to do this thing. But like looking at that with this like accuracy category, like 10 different times, has honed that a little bit. Like, what does it take to have like a deck that like really fits your archetype and isn't just like good cards in those colors? You don't need to try to have like 5 in everything for every color pair. That's not what we're aiming for. But we do want to see like at least a 4 in one of the categories, I guess. And I guess worst case, if you're struggling, just make the cards good. So even if they aren't that exciting, they're at least got the power level.
And like, I think the big thing is like flavor can do a lot for you. I feel like mercenaries, like, yes, they're a cool token, but they also hit just so many flavor points.
Yeah, that's true. They work on a lot of different cards flavor wise.
Yeah, that's just like, I feel like that helped lift any archetype that mentioned mercenary anywhere in it. We were just so jazzed about mercenaries. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I mean, lean into the good parts of your set, right? Oh, people are liking this. Well, I'm gonna make a couple archetypes that are built around this thing.
Yeah, if they were soldier tokens or something, like, I think I would still be excited for the gameplay of them, but they would not be nearly the flavor hit. All right. The other thing we wanted to kind of talk through this in the episode, you had that producer mindset and you're like, Tim, this is a good idea for an episode, but can you turn it into a series? But in order to do that, we need a catchy name. So this is something we need people's help for. You recognize that with EAS blank, we're close to easy, which is a cool name for for a setup. Instead of strength, we need something else, though. Out there on the internet, out there in the Discord, can you tell us what kind of name could we give this? Because I'm going to be calling this episode Archetype Ratings for Thunder Junction or something kind of not catchy. We need a cool name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd love to like be able to do this with like other custom sets, or like maybe one of the users in the Discord's like, hey, here's all the archetype uncommons for my set. What's your instant reaction to some of these?
Yeah,
and like, it'd be cool if we just have like, here's our scale that Beacon of Creation uses. Whether it's the easy scale, the juiced scale, something like that. That you could then like look at and be like, okay, this is what they're feeling about these shards. Like, maybe I can enhance some aspect of this archetype.
Yeah. I feel like rating the different cards, I feel like these categories were reasonably meaningfully differentiated, but maybe the categories should tweak a little bit in terms of what they cover. They overlap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Nailing, I think we kind of figured it out as we went along of like, what is a 1 on the accuracy versus a 5 on the accuracy? What does synergy look like? Every set has some amount of synergy. Most archetypes have a little bit of synergy. Cards work together naturally, but what's a 1 on the synergy scale versus a 5 on the synergy scale?
Yeah. And what actually counts in that category, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I trust. We have people who have like categorized every worm in Magic. I know that we have the brain power, we have the expertise to come up with the perfect rating scale. So help us out. we got the start. We got the draft. But yeah, I think that's just about it for our episode for the week. Thanks for listening to both of these. These were really fun to make. Like I said, if you have feedback, the Discord is the way to do it. But yeah, that's about it for what I've got. Do you have anything any movie recs or anything you want to tell people about?
So last week I went with a very early Western in Stagecoach. But the Westerns kind of had a resurrection, if you will. It was kind of, it was a very popular genre film for like the 30s, 40s, 50s, and then it kind of died out. And then it's slowly made a comeback. My favorite modern Western is No Country for Old Men.
Oh, okay.
It's a Coen Brothers film. So Big Lebowski is kind of what they're most well known for, but they've done a bunch of films, Fargo. But No Country for Old Men is set in like 1980s Texas, and
80s.
Yeah, okay. It was written by Cormac McCarthy, who recently passed away, who originally wrote it as a screenplay, gave it to the Coen Brothers. The Coen Brothers did some tweaks and then put it together. So there's also a book called No Country for Old Men, but kind of a modern Western, and like also it's a like kind of a horror film, like not scary, but the main villain of the movie, I kind of draw parallels to, he's kind of like Jaws, where he's just a monster that keeps coming back, and like he's got a supernatural ability to always find you and that kind of thing. If you watch Stagecoach, that's like the very old school Western. No Country for Old Men's very modern and doesn't look anything like the original Westerns, very different. So that would be a nice foil to that other request.
I didn't realize that was in the 80s. I just assumed, I've never seen it, that it was like in the 20s or whatever.
I've watched it a lot, and I always talk about with my friends of like, what year do you think this happened? And they never specify it completely, but there's a bunch of clues. Like you learn what Llewellyn's age is and when he went into the Vietnam War, like what year he enlisted, and then they mention a couple different cars and their make and model, and then so the year of the model. So like there's enough clues that you can kind of pinpoint like a 3-year range where it could have happened between like 1980 and 1983. So yeah, it's just I know it's in the early 80s at some point.
There we go. Yeah, that's a little bit different for a Western. Yeah, and if you want to talk about that movie or anything else, find us on the Discord. I'm at Tim F. Riley, your mono whiteboarder. And thank you for listening.